We're going to go through 5 news items from the week that you might have missed. And the first one you definitely missed because it didn't happen. And that's interesting. That is news that it did not happen. The 4.50 model for OpenAI did not drop. And there was a lot of rumor that it would drop this week. And the reason why it didn't is probably because Anthropic did not drop their model. And so what we have right now is a situation where Anthropic and Google and OpenAI all probably have better models lying on the shelf, metaphorically speaking. But none of them want to release them for fear of losing the PR buzz that comes from a model release that's immediately followed by another company releasing their model and then claiming it's great. So everyone's sitting there like, what do we do, right? Everyone's waiting for the other person to drop the model right now. I don't know how that's going to get resolved. That's up to OpenAI and Google and Anthropic. We will see. I would expect that eventually the market pressure is going to be high enough that a model will drop. The current rumor as of this week is that OpenAI has gone back to looking at just waiting until the 5th generation or 5.0 model comes out, and they're not going to release a halfway model. I don't know. Like the definition of halfway releases is weird in LLMs anyway, because how do you measure the performance of something that's a halfway through a generation you haven't released yet? I don't know. So the point is they didn't release it. They didn't release it because of interesting game theory reasons where everyone's staring at everyone else, waiting for someone else to go first. And we will just have to see how that resolves. Who will jump in the water first with the next generation model? We shall see. Number 2 did happen. Google and Microsoft and Amazon are now all in the nuclear power game. So we heard about Microsoft earlier. Amazon inked a $500-something million deal for nuclear this week. Google inked a deal for a lot of power, but they would not name a figure, which probably means it was also a lot of money. Bottom line, the big players in cloud are seeing that their energy demands are about to get so high that they have to have nuclear to handle them. And they need small reactors that are close to the data centers to provide continuous power, which means that future data centers are not just going to be data centers. They're going to have like a small modular nuclear reactor running the data center right there. And you might wonder, well, why is that, right? Like, why do they need that much more power? Well, it's because the new chips need more power to run. If you install Nvidia's new Blackwell chip architecture, which is what's shipping right now, which is what's booked out for the rest of 2025. Like the whole year, they've sold out of Blackwell. That's what is running all of the model inference for these new next generation training runs for these new models that, Anthropic and OpenAI and Google are trying to build. Well, that has 208 billion transistors per chip, as opposed to the chips that were used to train current ChatGPT models. They came in at only 80 billion. So this is a lot. It's a much smarter chip, right? It also sucks more power. And so Blackwell chips, if you put them in a server rack for a data center, are going to be coming in at 60 to 120 kilowatts per rack. And most data centers just don't have the power configuration to handle that. They top out at like less than 50 kilowatts per rack. And if that's the case, it's going to be hard. Like this explains the data center revamp. You have to essentially revamp your data center to handle the newest generation chips to build the nice models. And so that is why when you look at office construction figures in the US, they're doing very well, because it turns out that for reasons I don't fully understand, data centers are categorized as a kind of office in most US economic reports. And so the reason why we have been building new offices is because we've been building new data centers, and we've been building new data centers to handle the power consumption. So this brings us to one of the more surprising pieces of news for the week. ASML flopped. And when I say that, ASML is the Dutch company that builds the fabrication machines that make the chips that run our world. They build them for the runs that make these Blackwell chips for Nvidia, but they build them for everybody else too. The stock flopped and they lost something like $75 billion in market capitalization this week. and scared everybody because they came in about $5 billion lower on their sales guidance for 2025 than everyone had expected. And their bookings, which are like the future orders for chips, right? They came in at half what people expected. Now they have a big backlog, like they're working through like a $30-some billion backlog for their bookings. But the fact that bookings came in at like 2.5 billion instead of 5 scared the markets. Briefly, everybody who had exposure to AI in their company portfolio took a bath on the stock market. Like everybody got scared. It's since evened out, and I'll explain why. So ASML essentially said, this is not about AI. This is about the fact that certain fabrication forges, so certain places where you make chips, are delayed. Now, there's one that's really delayed that is relevant to the forecast, and it's the Intel forge in Germany. That got pushed back. And it got pushed back because Intel has been having real trouble making chips. They are falling behind in the chip race, and it is impacting their ability to make capital investments. That in turn hits ASML. The other reason is that ASML has been selling fabrication units to China, and there is speculation that export controls are going to go on that will limit their ability to do that going forward. And so that is part of why they slashed their guidance. They said they expect China revenue to drop down to about 20% of their total revenue versus 50% in the past year or so. Okay. If that all felt like a snooze to you, the TLDR is that the company that makes the machines that make the chips that run our world came in at lower than expected revenue guidance, which matters because everyone has been expecting these chip guys to do really, really well if we're all needing all of these chips to run AI. And basically what ASML said is it's not about AI. And then we heard just today from TSMC. Yes, I know these guys all have acronyms. TSMC is the Taiwanese company that is the most advanced chip manufacturer in the world. And so the most advanced chip architectures like Blackwell, which we just talked about, come from Taiwan. And TSMC has said that they have got so many orders they can barely keep up with demand. They've said that they have a healthy 5-year outlook, 54% rise in quarterly profit. They beat expectations. These guys who are actually building the AI chips are doing fine. In fact, they're the most valuable company listed in Asia right now. And so when you look at it that way, the story to me looks very much like AI is doing fine. Intel delayed a fabrication unit. ASML needs to adjust expectations. There you go. That's the news for the week. Oh, one more. Notebook LM dropped their actual product, and you can pass a note to the podcasters, which I will be doing. Check out Notebook LM if you haven't. All right. Cheers.